as broken hearts declare His praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before Him. So open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. Whoa, the God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? And our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. And our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before Him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? For who can stop the Lord Almighty? 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 Oh, who can stop the Lord? Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to Creekside, and we are live from the tent, as you can tell. And forgive the mess. That's our pantry back there. And hey, we're living in a tent. What can we say? And then you get all this glow from the sun. There we go. That's my halo. But we're so glad to have everybody in here this morning. 21 in here already. Oh, thank the Lord for that. Lila, first in, how are you? And Richard, glad to have you here. And Roberta, good morning. Dave and Sandy, always good to have you folk in with us here. And Lee, Fisherman 506. Scott, how are you doing, my friend? Paul, the bearded carpenter. Tim, glad to have you with us. And don't want to miss anybody here. Where to begin, Homestead? God bless you for being here. Elizabeth Roja, how are you doing? Glad to have you in. Deb, how are you doing today? Let me see. Don't want to miss anybody. Let me see. Glad to have Mrs. Creekside with me. Always good to have Jesse and Lisa in here with us. And it's a beautiful sunny day, as you can tell, but it is cold. I get down to like minus 19 last night here, and so I've been up most of the night trying to keep the fire going, but it's all right. We're going to make it. Sam, I am. Good morning, Sam. How are you? And anybody else? Hey, Miss Ann, how are you? Glad to have you here with us today. So happy you're here with us. Let me see. Anybody else that I'm missing? Mr. Willie, how are you doing? Let me see. Tim, yep, seen Tim. Everyone else. So we're just so happy you're all here. And again, please forgive me for, the glow on my forehead. It's three things. One, I'm not wearing a hat. Two, I don't have any hair right there. And three, the sun is bright. But it's going to be okay. I don't know if I can turn to get my better side or not. But we're just so glad to have everybody in here today. And Sunday morning, the start of another week. And what better way to celebrate the start of another week than celebrating together with, some good word from the Lord, some good encouragement. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Today's thought is a simple one. Jesse, you asked me last night kind of what I was going to talk about today. And of course, I said the wrong thing because I said, you mean tomorrow morning? And anyway, you had to been there. Mike Pierce, glad to have you in with us. And but this morning, don't panic. It's only a test. That's what we're going to talk about. Don't panic. It's only a test. And I want you to know that I truly feel this morning that this is a word for somebody. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that, I've got a straight communication line with God, but I am, because you pray and God talks to us, and that's the way it works. But I do feel very much so that there's a word here for somebody this morning. Hey, MT, glad to have you guys here. And it's always great to have wonderful friends join us. But, and again, forgive the tent life. It's where we're at right now. Hopefully that's soon going to change and we'll be in the house. Some videos coming out. Meant to have another video on Creekside Maples, but we're just so busy with everything. I never got it done, but we will get there. But anyway, this is what we're talking about today. Don't panic. It's only a test. Let's go to 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 1 through 7. And I want to read these so that we're all on the same page here. It says, now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, thy servant, my husband is dead. Thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. Now I want you to pay attention to that line right there. Now, if I were to paraphrase this and amplify it into modern day English, what she would be saying is this: I went to church, paid my tithes, done everything I was supposed to do, the preacher said, and we're still in trouble. That's what she's really saying. And the truth of it is, there's a lot of people that feel that way, that they think living for God, being a Christian, going to church, all those things that they're supposed to shield us from life, and they don't. Life is still going to happen. So we can't form this attitude that, hey, I'm a Christian, nothing bad is going to happen to me. But this is what she's saying: thy servant, my husband, is dead. You know that thy servant did fear the Lord, serve the Lord. But now the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. Because back in the Bible days, if you didn't pay your creditor, your taxes, whatever, they could actually come, take your children, and make them work for them for free until that debt was paid. Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in your house? So another point that I want you to notice there, Elijah the prophet shows up and he says, all right, what do you want me to do? What do you have? That's what he says. He puts it back on her and he says, what do you have? You're looking for me to supply, but the question really is, what do you recognize that you have? That's really the question. You know, we want God to do this and God to do that and someone else to do this and someone to show up and do that. The question is, what do you have? That's where the answer starts to happen, when we recognize, what is it I have? Okay. And so she said, thine handmaid has nothing in the house but a pot of oil. See, there's so many people that trivialize the great things. No matter how good it may be, they couldn't say anything good about it if they had to. Yeah, what was it? Negative Nancy. And if your name's Nancy, please forgive me. But there comes a time when you've got to change how you're viewing things and change how you're looking at it. And instead of glass half empty, perhaps glass half full. And so let's continue here, reading some more. Then Elisha said, all right, go borrow the vessels from all your neighbors. Empty vessels, because you can't fill up what's full. Oh, let me just stop there and park the bus and get off for a minute. It's all about perspective, Jesse. But he said, go borrow empty vessels, because you can't pour into what's already filled up with something else. Perhaps the reason you're not seeing God pour in the things you're praying about is you're too full of everything else. Just saying. Maybe it's time to empty some things out of your life, because there's no room for God to fit in there if you've got everything else filling it up. So he says, go borrow empty vessels, because God's looking for empty vessels. So if you're feeling absolutely empty this morning, you're the vessel God's looking for. You're the vessel God's looking for, because he's going to pour into you a miracle, strength, a blessing, whatever you may be needing. But if you're already filled up with worldly things, if you're already filled up with self, if you're already filled up with anger and hatred and bitterness and resentment, if you're already filled up with hurt and depression, and if you're already filled up with all of your stuff and all your fleshly interests and all your hobbies and all of your things, if you're so full of you, then there's no room for God to pour anything else in. So maybe what God's waiting for is for us to say, look, I got to empty some things out of my life so that God can pour some better things in. But anyway, I digress here. So he said, go borrow vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, empty vessels. Now watch this. Don't just get 2 or 3. Borrow not a few, get as many as you can find. Get as many as you can find. Because there is no stopping what God pours out unless you cap the vessel. You put a lid on the vessel. If you have no more room, if you've no more vessel to pour into, he'll stop, because he doesn't force himself upon us. And he said, when thou art come in, shut the door. Oh, I could stay on this all day. Why? Because you don't need all those distractions, folks. You don't need all those distractions. Shut the door upon you and your sons. Why? Because you're seeking God to pour something into your life. There's so many distractions now. So many things that are taking us away from the focus of where it should be. The first focus in every one of in every person, it don't matter who you are, where you're coming from, matters not your level of education or finance or where you live or what. The first focus we ought to have is to get up every day and say, thank God for another day. Thank God for another day. Excuse me, my throat's bad this morning. That's where it is. But there are so many distractions. And so Elisha says to this lady, shut the door. Why? I don't want your time with the miraculous interrupted. I don't want your time with God interrupted. There are times, folks, we just need to turn the phone off, turn the computer off, turn the TV off, turn the distractions off. There are times when we need to just shut it all out, and we need to close the door and say, God, I need a miracle. God, I need some help. God, I just need to get right with you. There are sometimes we need to close the door of distractions so that we can get our marriage right, our relationship right. There's times we need to get rid of distractions so we can focus on the things that are more important than your channel or your YouTube presence or your social media or your friends or your buddies or your hobbies. Sometimes we just need to shut that door and say, God, what would you want from me? And then he said, shut the door upon you and your sons, because how you live does affect your family. Oh, I could stay on this all day. And upon thy sons, he said, it does affect your family. How you live affects your kids. Because what parents do in moderation, children will do in excess. And so shut the door upon you and your sons. Include your family in your faith. Now, listen, I understand that when kids grow up, they're going to do their own thing. We've got 2 grown-up daughters. They're married. They're doing their own thing. And mom and dad don't have a whole lot of influence left in their life anymore. I'd like to think we've got some, but they're adults. That's the way it is. Once they're good girls, very good girls. But once they grow up, our influence wanes a little bit. It dwindles. But while you can influence them, while you can speak into their life, then take them with you and shut the door on those distractions. There's too many kids raised by TV and video games. Excuse me, I'm not on the soapbox. I'm just saying that. There's too many kids raised on video games and TV programs, and they have no idea what a real relationship is anymore. They can't walk with their head down looking at their phone. They live on their tablets, oblivious. The house could be burning down around them. Well, just let me finish this game. Anyway. And then he says, once you shut the door upon you and your kids, pour out into all those vessels. And thou shalt set aside that which is full. Now, you got to realize, let me back up here. I'm just talking here this morning. She says, I don't have anything in my house but a pot of oil, a little bit of oil. Okay. Now he's saying, pour out into all of those vessels. She's saying, I've only got one vessel with oil in it. He's saying, fill all the other vessels from that one vessel. Because you have to be able by faith to overcome what you're looking at. Because you may be looking at a Mount Everest to climb, but that's no mountain when the maker of the mountain is standing by you. And so the prophet's saying, look beyond what you're seeing. Don't let what's before you ruin what's coming. Sorry about that. I dropped my notes and my everything else. Excuse me. But don't let the reality of what is in front of you discourage you from what God has for you. Well, I can't have that. I can't do that. I can't. You need to get rid of that mentality and say, I can. And then he says, set aside that which is full. So she went from him. She shut the door upon her and her sons and brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. Okay. Now, what else does it say? Verse 6, and it came to pass when the vessels were full, she said unto her son, bring me yet a vessel. He said unto her, there is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Now, I don't know about you, but I see two things here. One, why are you letting someone else tell you when the miracle has to stop? Now, I realize this is her son. He says there's no more vessels. But if I was that mama and I've already filled like 15 pots out of my little one pot, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, hold on a minute. God isn't done. I've got more pots around here somewhere. Dump out the water. Dump out that. Get rid of that. Go find some. I'm going to go get me some. Don't go anywhere, prophet. You hold on. I'm going to get more. Let me get the wheelbarrow. Let me get whatever. Because if God has brought us this far, he'll take us rest of the way. Never let anyone else tell you when your miracle has to cease. You're in control of your faith. It's your faith. You say, I don't have much. All it takes is faith like the grain of a mustard seed. Did you ever see a mustard seed, how small that is? Come on, you gardening folks. That ain't much. But never forget, he also says that God has put in each and every one of us the measure, not a measure, but the measure of faith. And so when you look at that, you have to realize it only stopped because she didn't go get any more vessels. So there's a job for us to do if we want God to work. You can't just stand back, pray a prayer, and say, but I'm not going to do anything. Morning, Marshall. You can't just stand back and say, God, you poured in, I'm not going to do it. That's like Joni and I sitting here saying, God, get us some land, help us with the house costs and all that, but we're not going to put it together. That's ridiculous. You have to do what you have to do. You have to do what you can do. And then she came, verse 7, told the man of God, he said, go sell the oil and pay your debt. Live thou and thy children off the rest of it. Can you imagine? That's amazing to me how that all works. It is. He sure did. Christ fed the multitude with a few fish, a little bit of bread. And it said afterwards, it says that the disciples had picked up 12 baskets full. How many disciples is there? 12. Yep. So that means they each had their own little testimony they could carry around. But isn't it amazing? The very next story you hear, they're in the boat with that basket full of miracle food, and a storm comes up, and now they're ready to cave in again. All they had to do is look at their feet and go, hold on a minute. He just multiplied a few fish and a few loaves to feed thousands of people. He can look after this storm. How is it that we can neglect to see what God's done for us already because we're facing another mountain? God, he didn't bring you this far to leave you. He's got the whole world in his hands, and you're part of it. See, Jesus didn't come and say that we might have church. He said he came that we might have life. No, I'm not anti-church. I'm just saying he said that we might have life and have it more abundantly. More abundantly. Think about that. Think about that. Have life more abundantly. Somebody needs to hear what I'm talking about today. Listen to me. There's more to life than your hurt and your pain. There is. There's more to life than heartache and shame. There's more to life than loss and chaos. There's more to life than shattered dreams and broken lives. There's more to life than loss and depression. There's more to life than poverty. There's more to life than addiction. There's more to life than failed relationships and broken hearts and shattered dreams. And there's a whole lot more to life than dependence on substances to get us up in the morning or to help us sleep at night or to camouflage, the pain and the hurt in our lives. You see, everyone, alcoholics, we always talked about alcoholics and said, always tried to help them. Obviously, I know what it's like to have a drinking problem many years ago. But I had to realize that was nothing more than medication, that I was medicating the real problem. There was more to life than that dependency. There's more to life than sleepless nights and days of just that overwhelm you. There is. The Lord came that you and I could have life in abundance. There is hope in him. There's joy in the Lord, because the joy of the Lord is my strength. There is peace that passes all understanding. His strength is perfected in our weakness. His mercy, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Forgiveness is there for those that will ask. Deliverance from everything. Awesome, Lila. I'm so glad that God would share and have, a word for us that moves us and changes us and helps us to understand. This is just a test. Don't panic. I felt that early this morning. Somebody's been racing around panicking over a situation. I'm trying to tell you right now, stop for a minute. Good morning, KT. Stop for a minute. Stop. Just stop. Say goodbye to panic and realize it's just a test. But you secretly, you cry out to God and you love church and you love Christians, you love people, you love God. But it hasn't cut it for you. And you're wondering, God, you're like this woman. My husband, he loved the Lord, served the Lord, but now we're in a mess. Listen, Joni and I spent our entire married life ministering to people. We've traveled all over the country, all over Canada, all over the U.S., ministering to people. We've pastored churches, built churches, done all of those things. But do you think our life has been pain-free? I can share some stories that it would be hard to believe some of the agony of things that we've had to endure, that our kids have gone through. And now here we are in our mid-50s, and you know the story, trying to build a homestead in December. We're living in a 12 by 12 tent. But do you think that I would take back what I've, living for God and the opportunity that we've had to minister? No, it's not God's fault. Things happen. Stuff happens. Life happens. God's not mad at you. I'm telling somebody that right now. God is not mad at you. He has not left you. He has not forsaken you. But you're thinking that you've messed up too bad this time and there's no way God can fix it. I'm telling you, God can fix anything if you'll let him do it. He can. He can. Anybody know what I'm talking about this morning? I've come to tell somebody, don't panic. It's only a test. Let me remember back, I believe, October 30th, 1938, The War of the Worlds was an episode of the American radio drama anthology series it was Mercury Theater on air. It was performed as a Halloween episode of the series on October 30th, 1938, and aired over the Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS radio network. It was directed and it was narrated by Orson Welles. The episode was an adaptation of the H.G. Wells novel, The War of the Worlds. The first 2/3 of the 60-minute broadcast was presented as a series of simulated news bulletins, which suggested to many listeners, well, to all that were listening, that the actual Martian invasion was in progress. It ran without commercial breaks, which compounded the issue. There was sensational panic in response to that broadcast. People were panicking all over the country. And in the days following, there was widespread outrage because it was considered cruelly deceptive, because it was all a hoax. It was just a well-planned and plotted hoax. That's all it was. How many remember that? Don't panic. It was a hoax. That's all. But such is the same thing, the hoax going on in your life with many of your situations that you're going through. You've had an episode that's been running on the station of your soul and your mind and your heart a long time, and you're convinced it's all over. Well, I've come to tell somebody today, the enemy, the devil, is a liar. He's the father of all lies. He's the master of deception and the doctor of depression, and you've believed everything he's been telling you. But God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ask or think. It's a war of the worlds, all right. But heaven is his throne. The earth is God's footstool. And we know he's the one that wins. Yes, we do have an enemy to fight. And fight him we must and we will. But the kingdom of God, the Bible says, it suffereth violence, but the violent take it by force. In this country for the last few years, the bad news has been running without a commercial break. But the good news is the bad news is all wrong. The old Mike Perky song. It's not the end of the world, my friends. It's not the end of your life. It's not the end of your career. It's not the end of your finances. It's not the end of your sanity. It's not. Because it isn't over until God says it's over. If you're standing at a Red Sea, he'll part it. If you're in a dry desert, he'll water it. If you're at the edge of Jordan, step in. He'll part those flood waters. If there's giants in the land, pick yourself up a few stones and run towards your Goliath and cut his head off. Because remember, he told us, God did. Every place the sole of your foot shall tread, that have I already given it to you. It's your promise. So I'd like to say this to somebody, step on it. And I don't mean the accelerator. You get a speeding ticket. But I mean step on it. Understand, it's just a test. It's all right. We need people to just move forward and understand. This will not slay us. It's a test, and I'm going to pass it. I'm going to pass this test. It's just a test. Understand whose child you are, who lives in you and with you and around you. Understand that God before us, who can be against us? But if we go back to this woman's words in 2 Kings chapter 4, what do you do when it looks like serving God doesn't work? Because that's what she's saying. My husband feared the Lord. He served the Lord. What do you do when it seems like it's not working? Because we know what to do when it's good. Oh, we do. We know what to do when it's good. But do we know what to do when it's bad? Oh, we know how to shout. I know what to do. You know what to do when the check comes in and the raise comes at work. But what do you do when it doesn't? We know how to shout when we get the job, when we get the promotion. But what do you do when you're passed over for it? I know how to rejoice when I feel better and the sickness is gone or the tumor disappears. But can you stand in the presence of God and still proclaim that He is great when it doesn't look like there's any change yet? You know what I'm talking about? This woman here, she's confused. She's upset. She says, my husband did everything right, but it's not working. That's it. You tie a knot at the end of the rope and you hang on. What do you do when you do what the church and the preacher and the teacher and the minister and the missionary and the choir and everyone has taught you to do it, your parents, your grandparents, and it just doesn't seem like it's working? When you're living right and praying and seeking God, yet the sinner and the liar and the hypocrite and the heathen, they seem to be blessed more than you are. See, David said it this way. He said, my foot almost slipped when I looked at the prosperity of the wicked. But then he said, but when I stepped into the presence of the Lord, he said, I understood my gain is not down here. It is a heavenly home over yonder. The old song says, I may be a pauper down here, a poor man, but I'm a rich man in Christ. That's what you got to concentrate on. When you've given Him the best of your life and now in your later years, you're barely getting by, you've just got to trust Him. See, this woman has poured out her bitterness, her grief, not even understanding who it is that just walked into her life. She doesn't understand this is Elijah the prophet. She doesn't understand what's coming. God didn't send her an email or a text message or an envelope saying on this date, everything's going to change in your world. No, Elisha walked into her life and she was still stressed to the max. She still was thinking her kids were having to go with the creditors, and she still was living in the reality. I'm going to lose my kids. I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to lose everything. Because God isn't going to tell us in an email when things may change. It just happens. But we have got to be ready to understand it's just a test. I'm not going to panic. And trust me, I know what panic is. Good heavens, we were homeless and we still aren't in our home yet. But God has done miraculous things. We're living in a tent. Look at the clutter around us. And you may look at it and say, I couldn't do that. I can't stand that. That is insane. There's no way I could do that. There's no way I could push through what you and Joni are pushing through. Listen, there's no way we could have, but God, in His infinite grace and mercy, gives us strength renewed every day. But that doesn't mean every day is I'm out there singing praises and shouting hallelujah, because there are days when my head is on my arm and I am exhausted because I just had to spend an entire day digging one rock out of a foundational hole. And there are days when I go out there and I have to shovel another 2 inches of snow off the floor because the roof isn't on yet. And there are nights like last night that we stay in this tent with the wind whipping around, wondering if the stovepipe is going to stay connected to the stove when it's so cold, and we get up this morning and there's icicles on the inside of the tent. It isn't always easy, but I'm not going to panic because I know this. God brought us this far. He's provided this land. He's provided everything to this point. I am not about to walk away from Him now. I'm not going to panic. Am I going to get tired? Yes, I'm tired. Am I weary? Yes, I'm weary. Do I have pain in my body? Yes, every single day. And do I have doubts sometimes and fears sometimes? Yes, I do. I'm being honest. But the truth of it is, He's still my God. He still brought us this far. In the reality of life, I'm still going to trust Him regardless of what the picture may look like right now. Because soon and very soon, we're going to walk through the door of that house over there. And the roof's going to be on. The stove's going to be heating that house. It will not be long, and we're going to be out of this tent. The mice can live here alone because I'm tired of living with them. You understand what I'm saying? Don't panic. It's only a test. It's only a test. I mean, come on, let's face it. What if God had showed up when we were in our 20s and starting our ministry and said, oh, by the way, you're going to minister for me for 30 years and then wind up in nothing more than a 12 by 12 tent in the middle of a field with no home? Do you think we would have been so quick to pursue him? Probably not. But you know what? Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. He's got this. He's gonna help us get through this. He's using everybody out there in this community. We didn't start when we started our YouTube channel. We didn't understand what God was doing and going to do through this YouTube channel. But now there are people being touched and ministered, and their faith is being renewed and being encouraged. And we are being strengthened and encouraged by all of you. So God is so awesome. Exactly, Paul. So what do you do when you've done all you can do and you've tried to do your best for the Lord and it just didn't seem like it works? You just stand there. When you've done all you can do, you stand. Because he's going to bring you through. I'm sure Elisha wanted to stand there and say, listen, lady, you don't understand what's about to happen. You don't understand what's about to happen. When Elisha walked in, he didn't bring a choir. He didn't bring an organization. He didn't even bring a building. He just brought the word of God, and he was full of it. And he was full of faith and power with God. You see, it does matter who you hang out with. Hello. I believe that you can be blessed just because of who you're hanging out with. God brings people into your life to help support you. And we understand that more than ever at this juncture of our life. But I'm telling you, there are some people that you don't need in your life because they're negative Nellies. They're, always talking, something wrong with everybody else and can never celebrate anybody else's successes and all of those sort of things. Negative Nellies all the time, just crying, wah, wah, wah. Thank you, Dave and Sandy. I appreciate that. So it does matter. I mean, if all you've got, if everyone you're hanging with or some of the people you're hanging with are nothing but Debbie Downers, and it's always black and never light, and it's always bad, never good. And no matter how many good things you say, they've always got a retort that comes back and says, I know, but. Don't you love those kind of people? No one's ever gone through anything as hard as them. No one's ever hurt as bad as they hurt. No one's ever, listen, we all have stories to tell. We all have hurts and fears. My story, our story is our story. Your story is just as real to you. But let us not capitalize on the negative things. And I know we all will get there. We all have those negative moments. But we also got to have a balance of when we say, great is the Lord, and he is greatly to be praised. If I need encouragement, I'm not going to call someone that has never spoken a word of encouragement. When I need to hear God knows, I just call Jesse. He tells me. When I need to, hear about the testimonies and how wonderful things are happening, I call Dave and Sandy. They tell me. You see, surround yourself with people that'll lift you up, not tear you down. Don't you love those people that'll tell you, oh yeah, well, look what serving God. What's serving God ever got you? Maybe nothing down here. But when I get over in the glory land, it's got me something there. There's a new name written down in glory. It's mine. I've got a crown waiting. You do too. I've got a mansion just over yonder. I may not be able to show you proof of every great thing down here, but I can show you a piece of land. I can show you a humble home that we're building, and I can show you a community of people that love us and have our back and have carried us for the last, 6-8 months of our life. I can show you blessing after blessing after blessing in the face of adversity after adversity after adversity. Hey, Annie. So I want to sit beside somebody that if I'm saying hallelujah, I'm saying halle and they're saying luya. That's right. God knows, and you fill in the blank. You sit by a grouch all the time, you'll become one. You roll with the pigs long enough, you'll smell like them. You see, there is good things happening. There's change coming in government, in the economy, in the world, in peace, in the spirit, in your life. There's a shifting going on at your job, in your health. There's an aligning of things that God is moving things around. God is not going to be outdone by governments, politicians, people, the devil, kings, queens, whoever. The old song says what? I just feel like something good is about to happen. Don't panic. It's just a test. It's just a test. Now, this woman, she's flat broke in these scriptures in 2 Kings 4. She's flat broke. And now her kids are going to be sold. So what do you do with that? When you see your kids being sold, you can pretty much guess she's run out of alternatives. And a lot of times we hate it, the direction our kids are going. But if you trust God, God can steer them back. God's about to turn some things around for some folks in here this morning. God's going to turn some things around for you. And I know on our YouTube channels, a lot of times we see the best of people. We don't really see what's going on in the background in lives. We don't see the turmoil. We don't see the tragedy. A lot of times we're not privy to the stresses and the struggles and all of that, but they're real. But through our channels and YouTube and videos, we can put on a face and kind of pretend for a while that all seems good a lot of times. But in the background, the music isn't so great. The band hasn't gathered. The cheerleaders have gone home. The curtains have closed. It's not dawn, it's dark. And you're wondering what to do. And I'm here telling somebody this morning, you've needed to hear this today. Do not panic. Stop panicking. This is only a test. I've got news for someone who thinks they're out of options with no other alternatives. It's like the story of the picture of the chess game in the, I forget what museum it's in, but it's called Checkmate. And the chess player, the professional chess player, stands there one day and he stares at the picture for a very long time. And then all of a sudden he begins to holler out, there's one more move. There's one more move. He took hours and analyzed that picture and realized it's not checkmate. There's another move. And there's another move. It's not checkmate. God's got an option for you. God's got an option for you. Even when you think you're out of options, God has answers. Well, I'm going to have to quit there. I've got so much more I could say. I've got so much more that I'd like to say, but I'm not going to keep you here longer than we need to be. I think you get the point. Don't panic, folks. Some of you may just think this is a good sermon this morning, whatever, and it's not applicable to you right now. That's okay. It may be tomorrow. It may be in the middle of the week. It may be next month. And you're going to listen and you're going to recall the words, hold it, don't panic. This is just a test. And for each and every one in here today, if I could say that to you, don't panic. It's a test. Are you going to keep your faith, or are you just going to give up? Are you going to trust God, or you think God's mad at you because you failed too miserably for God to work for you anymore? Listen, God does not throw his children away no matter how bad we act. He just wants us to talk to him. All you have to do, ask him to forgive you. All you have to do is go to him and talk to him. And he is faithful, he is just to forgive us of all of our sins. But maybe, just maybe, like I said at the beginning, you're so full of everything else, and you're so full of yourself, and you're so full of all this other stuff going around in the world that you haven't left room for God to move in your life right now. He wants to, but maybe you need to look at your life and say, hold on a minute, I've gotten way too busy. I've lost focus on what's important in pursuit of things that aren't. Don't panic. It's only a test. It's only a test. Thank you for each one that I see a couple PayPal come in there this morning. We appreciate any amounts, any offerings, anything at all. $1, $5, $10, $50, $100. It all helps us right now. And I appreciate that so very much. If it weren't for all of you folk, Joni and I would, I tell you, it'd be pretty sad. But we're so happy to have each and every one in here today. And can you do a favor for me right now? Just write in a comment right now how this word has helped you today. Just a few words. You don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Just a few words of how this has helped you today, so that we know that it has helped. Because that's the reason we do this. That's the reason we do this. Because we want to reach here from where we're at in this little tent all over the world to encourage people that hold on, it's going to be okay. Take care, Paul, Bearded Carpenter. Take care, my friend. And to each and every one, thank you, Jesse, for moderating. Thank you for, I'll tell you what I'm thankful for, that you guys aren't judging us in the predicament we're in here. That you don't just look at it and go, wow, a tent, really? Look at the mess. Look at this. I'm thankful you're not judging us on that, because you know who we really are. So I'm thankful for that. Thank you, Kareen. Good to have you in here. God bless you. All the way from Jamaica. I've never traveled to Jamaica and ministered there physically, but it's great to know that our words are going there via social media. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Lila. Thank you so much. We love you. And, God knows how to lift our burdens and what we need to hear. So again, thank you, Jesse, for being a great moderator. We appreciate that. You do so well helping me out with this. He's the guy behind the scenes that keeps all of this stuff running while I can concentrate on what we're talking about. So thank you. Rebecca, touched by yarn. Love you. How are you doing? So glad to have you here. So many folks. And I love how it's growing. Our numbers are getting larger, and it all helps. No problem at all, Kareen. He is amazing, Andale. He is, Miss Ann. Jesse's amazing, and God is amazing. Yeah, and Jesse is a great friend. Been friends, for a long time now, and it's always great to have him on board, helping me out behind the scenes, and so many others on here. I just want to shout out to each and every one. You folks support us so much, and we're thankful for it. I thank God for each and every one of you. And Scott, sorry I didn't get that stuff in the mail yet, my friend, but it'll work out. It really will. And Dave and Sandy, thank you so much for all you do. And everyone else on here, please don't get offended if I don't mention everyone's name. But thank you to each and every one that helps us so much. You guys are awesome. So on that note, we're going to close this out. We hope you've enjoyed Creekside Chronicles for the day. Don't forget, Creekside Maples Live. It's Tuesday night on our Homestead channel, and it's always fun on Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, and it'll be a great time to have fun together. Hey, Lisa, God bless you. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you all later. We're going to get going here. We got some friends that are visiting with us this afternoon. It's going to be a good day. But take care, everyone. God bless. Have a great week. Remember, don't panic. It's only a test.